What's up guys, BJ the Brave here, long-time CCG gamer, been playing CCGs now for about 15 years, Hearthstone, Shadowverse, Gwent, The Elder Scrolls Legends, Mythgard, more recently Warforged and a bunch of others. But I am super excited to be bringing you some content for this game. This is Shadowverse Worlds Beyond and it is about to go live globally on the 17th of June. So we are literally weeks away guys from this launching, and this is particularly exciting. If you are like me, a really big fan of digital card games, what makes this I guess stand out from any other CCG for me is the fact that it's the first time that we are seeing a developer have a second crack at the whip. Imagine if CG Projekt Red got to redo Gwent and do Gwent 2, or if, right, we're doing Legends of Runeterra 2, right? Pick any game you want. The point is that all that experience, all of that stuff that you learn from the first attempt, all those lessons learned are just going to add to like just a completely refined experience, and I'm super excited. The closest thing we've got is Marvel Snap, right, where the guys left Hearthstone and they went and made Marvel Snap, and that's been a massive success. So I am really excited because Shadowverse was always a good game and it always had a ton of promise. And to see them have a second crack at the whip like this, and they're also putting foundations in for this to be a long-term thing. They're not just looking at like to make a quick buck and run. They're actually looking at how do we establish a great CCG that's going to last. I actually think they said between 10 and 30 years. That's insane. Like, I hope we're playing this game in 30 years time, guys. I really do. So as I say, Shadowverse Worlds Beyond is going to be out on the 17th of June. We have not got long to go, guys. So what you can do is you can head over to the website and you can basically pre-register now and sign up. And if you do, then there's a whole load of milestone rewards. So go ahead and go to, I'll put the link in the description below, but go ahead to the official website, sign up, and as you can see here, they originally said if they got up to 300,000 pre-registrations that everybody would get 10 free packs on release. Well, guess what guys, they've already done that, right? So if you go ahead and sign up now, you are guaranteed those 10 packs. What they've done is they've actually extended, as you can see here, there's now going to be an additional couple of bonus rewards. So if we reach that 400,000, you're going to get a legendary card pack ticket as well. So look guys, now is the time to go ahead and sign up. You can play this on Android, you can play it on iOS, or you can play it on PC, so take your pick. So anyway, let's talk a little bit about what actually is Shadowverse. So the back set, really, I mean, it's a digital card game, of course, and it is not a game that you can play physically. I'm not going to go into the pros and cons of physical versus digital. Hopefully, if you're here, you kind of already know that. But basically, it is set in a rich and diverse fantasy universe featuring multiple intersecting storylines. So unlike a lot of games, instead of being set in one world, Shadowverse is actually set in a multiverse. I know that's a little bit becoming a bit cliche already, but it's set across multiple realms or dimensions or whatever, loosely tied together by this thing they call like the Tree of Woe, or the Greater Will, if you like, which is like this kind of like cycle of destruction and rebirth. And yeah, now essentially that was like the backstop to the original Shadowverse. And essentially in the Worlds Beyond, it's kind of like building on those foundations that were set in the original. So the sequel introduces new characters, new mechanics, and a more immersive structure. And it essentially, from a lore perspective, it begins from various worlds that have chosen to participate in a high-stakes tournament that determine the fate of their respective realms. So that's great, but what about the game itself? So basically, if you are new to Shadowverse or to card games, essentially you pick a hero and your opponent has a hero, and each of you have 20 health points. And the idea is to basically get your opponent down from 20 to 0. First one to do that wins the game. How do you do that? You each turn play cards. Those cards, once they're on the board, they can essentially do damage to your opponent's face. and you also have spells that you can kind of cast from hand as well. Now, in order to do that, you have to spend what are called play points. If you've come from Hearthstone, that's called mana. If you've come from games like Warpforged, it's called energy. But essentially, at the start of the game, you'll have one play point, and then each turn you will gain one additional play point, and that will go all the way up to 10. And you can spend these play points to get increasingly more powerful cards into the game. Now, for each card, you will get their cost, how many play points it costs to play it, but you'll also have an attack value, and you'll also have a health value. That's exactly the same as Hearthstone, so you use your attack value to do damage either against other cards, or you will do that against what we call enemy face, which basically means your enemy hero. Now, one of the things that they are introducing in Shadowverse Worlds Beyond is a thing called a Shadowverse Park. And guys, I've been waiting for this game for 2 years, and honestly, this kind of concept has gone up and down, and they've talked about having fishing minigames and all sorts of stuff, but they've essentially done what I think is a pretty good thing. They've dialed back on some of the kind of more crazy ideas, and what they're going to do is just create it into a kind of digital space where apparently players can kind of meet in a hub. I think they're saying up to 100 players, and they can kind of socialize. So it's like you'll have a physical avatar. You can walk around this kind of Shadowverse Park and you can talk to people. There's going to be a big screen. You can apparently even set up like tournaments or play games in there. The exact details of that is coming, but essentially what's creating is a social space to hang with other players and do stuff around the game, which sounds really intriguing and pretty cool, to be honest. Now, let's talk about some of the mechanics, the new mechanics that are coming to the game. One of the things with Shadowverse, the original game, is that it has a USP, if you like, really, which is this idea of evolve. So you can take a standard card and its normal stats, and you get to evolve a card. And the way that works in World Beyond is from turn 4, you will have essentially two evolve opportunities, if you like. So you can evolve a card from turn 4, and if you do that, the card will essentially get a +2 to its health and its attack, and it will also gain rush, and rush basically allows you to immediately attack an enemy card, right? So brilliant. Now, what they're adding to the game is a kind of enhanced version of that, which is Super Evolve. And Super Evolve can happen, as it says here, from turn 7. If you're going second, then you can do it. You can essentially do it from turn 6. We'll come on to why that is in a second. So yes, similar to the evolution mechanic, super evolution, you will have essentially 2 super evolution points. So you can do that twice in a game. And again, you can super evolve any follower, which is pretty cool. Even the most basic card can super evolve. What happens if you super evolve? You get the abilities of evolve. Remember, we already talked about that, getting the rush. But what's going to happen is you're going to get +3 to your attack and defense, as opposed to just the +2. And in addition to that, you actually can't take any damage or be destroyed by abilities during your turn. So for example, if you attack something that had Bane, which is kind of like Death Touch, would normally kill you instantly, that wouldn't happen. Or if you attack something that has like 3 attack, normally you would take 3 damage to your health, but you don't take that, right? So you just basically get to rush, if you like, to attack, and you don't take any damage. So obviously the turn in which you super evolve is going to be like a super swingy turn, and that's one of the things that's pretty cool about Shadowverse anyway. And is going to get even cooler is you're never out of the game, right? Like if you've got these mechanics, your opponent could have established the board and you've got cards in hand, and you can evolve or super evolve and you can get back into the game, and that makes for a really fun experience whereby you're always in it and there's a lot of like back and forth, and you always feel like you've got an opportunity to come back and win the game. Interestingly, when you do play Super Evolution Point and you attack the enemy followers, you actually, if you actually destroy an enemy follower, you also deal almost like a 1 overwhelm damage to the enemy hero as well, the enemy leader as well, and that's pretty cool, right? Because your enemy leader could be down to sort of 2-3 health, and just by super evolving and killing 2 or 3 followers that are on the board, then you actually end up winning the game as well. Now, in a game of Shadowverse Worlds Beyond, each player will start the game with 4 cards, and you'll be shown 4 random cards from your deck, and just like other CCGs, there is what's called the mulligan phase. That is your opportunity to say, oh, I don't like those cards, I want to throw them back and dig for something else in my deck. So you can do that with any one of your 4 cards, and that's going to really help you to get a good starting hand with nice low curve units that you can play immediately. Now, anyone who's played CCGs knows that going second often sucks and you feel like you're at quite a disadvantage. But one of the things that developer Cygames have actually said is that they've really play tested this mechanic to try and enable the person going second to catch up and make the game fair, and they're pretty confident that it is actually pretty equal. So how does that work? Well, essentially, if you're going second, you essentially get 2 bonus player points at different phases in the game, and that basically means that the player going second can temporarily gain a player point at any turn. So for example, on turn 1, where you'd only have 1 player point, if you use your bonus, you could actually start the game, you could play the first turn having 2 player points, and that could allow you to deploy a follower, for example, that costs 2 immediately at the start of the game. So it allows you to kind of play it with a bit of a tempo advantage, or a better way of putting it would be to negate the tempo advantage that your opponent gets from having first turn. Now, this can be used up to 2 times per match. You can do it once between turns 1 and 5, and then you can do it once basically from turn 6 onwards. And what's kind of interesting about that is that the super evolve mechanic, remember, you can do from turn 7. So if you're going second, that means you could use your bonus player point on turn 6 to basically super evolve before your opponent gets to do it. So overall, I'm really liking the changes that they made to evolution and to super evolve. Remember, you can do that. You can evolve or super evolve any unit. Certain units will have additional bonuses, by the way, when you super evolve. It won't just be the +3 and the things that we talked about with the rush and the kind of invulnerable, if you like. They will actually have in their card text additional abilities as well. So part of the strategy will be trying to choose what it is that you know which cards you really want to prioritize super evolving. Now, in addition, they've introduced a thing called crests. Now, several updates have been made to the battle UI, making it easier to understand the current state of the match, and one of the things there is that crests will be located in the kind of bottom left of the screen, as kind of highlighted here. And essentially, what this does is that when you're giving your hero, your leader, a kind of ability, that's what a crest is. So you can easily check on the bottom left which crests you've got, and you're actually able to assign up to 5 unique crests at a time. So in Shadowverse Worlds Beyond, there are actually 7 different classes that you are going to be able to jump into and play. As a beginner to the game, it is probably going to be a good idea to focus in on learning and playing all of them a little bit to understand them, but probably really focusing on one initially in terms of building that depth of collection and really understanding the mechanics, and then you'll be able to fill out from there. So I will be doing a video on each of the factions and doing a deep dive once we see all the cards. Let me know down in the comments which of the factions you're most excited for. Perhaps I'll actually, that'll help me decide which order to make the guides on. But of the 7 factions, just a quick overview, we have got Forestcraft. Remember, these are all coming from their own kind of worlds, and so you can get a real mixture in terms of like the feel and the lore for them. Forestcraft, obviously, you can have lots of kind of themes around nature in terms of the cards and the units. And in terms of the gameplay, they tend to be quite a combo-orientated deck. So for those of you who like kind of really fast, kind of like aggro combo, kind of go wide types of decks, Forestcraft are going to be very, very good. Obviously, one of them weaknesses is like control decks, because if you're coming up against something that can kind of wipe a board quite efficiently, then you could be kind of struggling in the late game. Swordcraft really focus on using followers, so you get lots of sword and knight themed followers that you get to put on the board. It's really a board building faction, if you like. So if you like to kind of like try and dominate the kind of with a kind of onboard tempo style of play, then Swordcraft are for you. Runecraft are all about using, surprisingly, runes and magic, right? tends to have cards that do have effects based on how many sort of runes that you have in place. So, for example, you have 3 in place, you might be able to draw 3 cards, for example. And so ultimately the strength of the faction comes in the rune management and getting these like high ceiling payoffs, if you like. But obviously the weakness is that it can be a bit slow to progress, and your opponent can disrupt your rune generation in the early game or just beat you down before you get a chance to put the pieces together. Now you can see for each of the different classes, we've also got new warlords. So for those of you who have played Shadowverse OG, there's something new for you as well as returning cast and characters. Now Dragoncraft are quite an interesting one for those of you who played Druid, for example, in Hearthstone. They're essentially what's called the ramp faction. So you can imagine that on turn 3 you play a card that says give you an extra empty play point. So instead of going into turn 4 next turn, you end up going into turn 5. And this idea is called ramp because you're ramping up the amount of play points you can play so that you can cheat out these higher cost big beefy units. Sometimes we call this type of faction like the Timmy factions. If you just like big meaty statted units that you can drop on the battlefield and say, hey, good luck dealing with this guy, then Dragoncraft are definitely going to be the class for you. Next up, we've got Abbycraft. Now, for those who played OG, there's been a little bit of drama around this because there were 2 factions that were Shadowcraft and Bloodcraft, and they've essentially been merged into one. What can you expect from Abbycraft, though? Ultimately, this is a faction that really interacts with its graveyard. You know, death is a key theme, for example. So you'll have things where you sacrifice your own units, like kill your own unit to kill an opponent's unit, for example. And so it's really quite a tactical approach to the game, like trying to set up all these plays and self-sacrifices and then make the most of your graveyard. Like any sort of strategy that relies on kind of putting the right combo pieces together, the difficulty is when the pieces don't come together, right? So your management, again, of that puzzle is going to be really, really important. Next up, we've got Havencraft, and Havencraft are very much the heal faction, if you like. So if you enjoy playing control builds where you have lots and lots of protection against kind of early game aggro and stuff, that the chance to heal and kind of AoE damage, and then have these really big value kind of endings, then Havencraft is definitely for you. But of course, they are a little bit slower to start with, so you've got to make sure that you have the pieces needed to preserve yourself into the late game. And last but not least, we have Portalcraft, and this is all about manipulating portals to use them to summon powerful followers. So you're going to end up with cards that essentially put these puppets and these additional kind of rushed followers and things like that in your hand, and then you can actually use those to have these really powerful turns. It's quite a high skill ceiling class, Portalcraft, but actually also very high power ceiling as well. So if you like a particularly strategic faction, then this is going to be a good one for you. But again, it does require quite a bit of setup, making you particularly vulnerable in the early game. Now, one of the things that Shadowverse was always particularly great for, I think, is that it was incredibly free-to-play friendly and very forgiving and very inviting for new players. Obviously, the game went on for quite a number of years. I think it was 9 years Shadowverse has been out. So obviously, you do reach a point where new players jumping in at that point, it can be quite overwhelming. But they've obviously thought hard about the new player experience. And one of the things I really love is that they're adding this UD feature. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right in my Yorkshire accent, but the idea here is that you're essentially going to have like an AI coach, if you like, helping you through the beginning of the game, helping you in things like practice matches, giving you tips, explaining rules as and when they occur. So you're not having to just sit there and try and learn all the rules up front. You can actually start having fun and playing the game, and UD will kind of jump in and tell you every time something's new. I think that's really, really cool. Really excited for that feature. Obviously, one of the things I'm kind of curious about is, as they add new content, how well does UD keep up with that, and does it help, for example, a new player that's coming 6 6 months down the line or a year down the line, does this actually help them to, you know, does it make recommendations and account for new things coming out? But this is a really, really cool feature for sure. Now, another really cool thing is that in Shadowverse, you can essentially liquidify the cards, the extra cards that you have. So when you're building a deck, you can only have 3 of any one card. Obviously, if you've come from like games like Warforged, or you can only have 2. In Shadowverse, it's 3. Now, as you acquire extra duplicates, you know, 4, 5, 6, you can actually liquidify those extras, and that gives you vials, and you can use vials to craft the cards that you want, which again is really exciting, because if you want to build new decks and you've got your eye on a specific card and you haven't opened it in a just a pack, for example, you can actually just liquidify your bonus vials, and then you can cards, and then you can spend vials to get new cards. So that's really, really cool. Now, I know OG players might be a little bit upset, because one of the things that they're doing here is they're not going to let you liquidify cards below the 3. In other games that's normal, but in OG Shadowverse you were able to liquidify like an entire faction if you just didn't want to play it, and it did give you a temporary boost, I guess, like to get a collection for the deck you wanted. But the problem with that is that then if you're in the game for the long haul, you're probably going to have buyer's remorse and you're going to have regret down the line. So I'm kind of happy about that change. Let me know in the comments. I know that one's always going to be a mixed one, to be sure. But what we can tell you, and especially if you're new to the game, right, is, as you say, when you get those bonus additional duplicates, you can liquidify them, and then you can use the vials to craft the cards that you want, essentially. Now, here's a really cool addition, just for logging into the game. You don't even have to play a game, just logging in. You get a free daily pack every single day. How cool is that? So if you log in 365 days of the year, that's 365 packs you're going to get in your first year of play. That's pretty cool. That's pretty free-to-play friendly. Now, in addition, another thing that's pretty cool is what's sometimes called a pity drop. What they've said is that every 10 packs that you open, there'll be a guaranteed legendary card. Now, you do need quite a lot of legendary cards. In this game, as we already said, you can kind of have up to 3 copies of things, so you do need quite a lot, but that's really cool. You know, coming from Warforged, for example, you can go 30 packs before you get a legendary drop. Every 10 packs you do. Now, one thing to bear in mind, the free daily pack doesn't count towards those 10. So it's not like you can just log in and after 10 days you definitely get one. But, you know, I think that's fair ultimately, to be honest. And here's another cool thing. When you jump into the game at the very, very start, after you've done your beginner missions, you're going to be able to do a story, and the narrative and the story around Shadowverse is really cool. It's something that a lot of players have loved for forever in the game, and that is going to return in Worlds Beyond. So definitely jump in and do the story. It'll help you get connected to the lore and the background, but not just that, you actually unlock a ton of cards from doing it. So if you're brand new to the game, definitely recommend jumping in with the story and the missions. And also, by the way, when you complete the beginner missions, which every one of us should be doing, it's a brand new game, you will then be given a choice of 9 recommended starter decks, 9 different ones, and you can choose a free starter deck, which includes a powerful legendary card, and you can choose which one you want. So if you want to do Runecraft or you want to do Dragoncraft, you can actually pick the one to get you started and kind of, you know, bump your collection. One of the things I love about digital card games is the tournament scene, and a cool thing about Shadowverse is they're really big on tournament support. There's lots of community tournaments, and there are developer-backed tournaments too, such as the Shadowverse World Grand Prix, and they've already announced that is going to be happening. As you can see here, there's a massive 100,000 Japanese yen prize pool. My maths isn't great, but I think that's around about £500,000 or $600,000 or something like that. So it's a massive prize pool, and of course there's going to be qualifiers and lots of information released on exactly how that works. So if you like competitive play, this is just obviously the main one, but there's tons of tournament scenes around it. And a really good place to stay in tune with that is check out the Shadowverse Reddit and also the official Discord, which is live now, guys. So go and join the Shadowverse World Beyond Discord. So that's it, guys. As I said at the beginning of this video, I am super hyped for this game. I've been waiting a few years for this to come out. We've had several delays, but it's finally happening. June the 17th. What are you waiting for? Go and get pre-registered. As you can see, go and get your free 10 packs. We've already hit the 300,000 milestone, so go and pre-register. But guys, like I said, a developer having a second go at based on 9 years of everything they've learned, this is shaping up to be a really quality user experience. All of the guys who have been to the pre-shows and had hands-on, they're all glowing about it in terms of the reviews, even just little quality of life things, how fast it is to get into a game, all of that sort of stuff. It is sounding excellent, and we haven't even talked about the updated graphics engine. Oh my god, this game looks good. So guys, I'm super excited. I'm BJ the Brave. I hope you've enjoyed this. Please hit that like and subscribe for more Shadowverse content. I am going to be doing some full breakdowns of the factions, and next up I am going to be talking about the cards that have been released and revealed so far, so we can start to get our heads around learning what the mechanics are and what the cards do before the game comes out. So if you like this one, then check out this one next. Take it easy, guys, and thanks for all the support.